Give me a second. I think. All right. Okay. We're recording. I can cut this out. So starting now. Glenn, nice seeing you, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Rahul, and I really appreciate you doing this. And this is kind of exciting, right? It's your big debut too, huh?
Yeah, you're doing me the honor, right? I'm a nobody small time podcast. You're the guy that responded. You're the big game director. It's truly an honor to have you on here.
Well, this is the start of big things. I can feel it.
I feel it. Glenn, this podcast revolves around obviously talking about all things nerdy, right? The title, Nerd Without Order. I love video games. I love movies. I love music. I love art, and anything that ties into those things. But since you are my special guest, of course, you have a lot of things that you've done in your past, primarily in the video game world, but not just in the video game world. And I'd like to explore some of those things with you today, if that's okay with you.
That sounds great, man. Yep. Just bring on the questions. I'm here for it.
All right, so kind of just starting off, let's start at the very beginning, right? Very young Glen Schofield. What were some of your greatest passions, or maybe some aspiring dreams that you wanted to accomplish growing up?
Yeah, I started drawing. I realized that I could draw, I guess, at 4 or 5. And so I never needed a coloring book. I kept myself busy with drawing. um I was and I wanted to draw all the time. Once I realized I could. It was just
Right.
something I was lucky. My grandmother was very eccentric in a way, and in a good way, right? She was in the arts and everything, and she had gotten divorced years ago, but she had a boyfriend. They're older, right? But I called him Uncle Bill, and Uncle Bill saw at an age of at about 5 a talent, and he taught me how um, to shade at the age of 5. And I started doing shading, and it changed my drawings. At 6, he taught me how to do uh, perspective, right? And then like 6 or 7 or 8, it was like 2-point perspective. So I learning stuff real early. Um, my I was just attracted to cartoons
Okay.
right away. Cartoons. I started collecting political cartoons at age 8 or 9, and everybody would send them to me. I had stacks of them, so I was drawn like heads of state, Yasser Arafat, people like this,
Okay.
and people like, how do you know who they are at 10? I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
study that.
you've been that was your resource. That was your material that you studied to
A
learn
lot
how
of
to
that,
draw.
yeah, yeah. All the great cartoonists.
Right.
I also grew up with, this is a long time ago, dude. And there was every Sunday was Walt Disney was on.
Okay.
She had a show. Every Saturday morning was cartoons, and then every great holiday was Peanuts or
Yeah.
Charlie Brown. And
Charlie
so,
Brown.
right, and so I only saw cartoonists as successful.
Right. Yeah. That's
So
your perception as a
that was my
kid.
perception as a kid. Oh, so I just went and I just so I've been very passionate about art, my whole life. And I've also had the drive to want to do it. So that was
Right.
my biggest thing, and I wanted to be a cartoonist.
Right. And see, that's the thing, like, having a dream and a passion and actually following through with that. I mean, you just never know where it's going to take you, right? I mean, look at you now. All this time has passed, and like the position that you're in now, I guess it would be a good message for people that have a passion and they may start it and they might feel discouraged. I guess it'd be good to just keep going, right? Just keep going, keep working at that skill and just get better at it.
Yeah, I used to have a saying that no meant keep going,
Right.
um, because there's so much rejection at the beginning in art, right? Especially when you sort of get to professional level, or I would
Right.
say that growing up to 12th grade, I was known as the artist in school, and so there was a lot of you're patting you on the back and hey, you're really good and all that. Then you get to college, and then all of a sudden you're with all the best of all the other high schools,
Right.
and all of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I'm sort of mediocre,
Yeah.
and
You start checking yourself like, whoa.
oh,
Yeah.
and yeah, that was my first time of fight or flight, man, and in
Right.
college, because there were some people that were exceptional. There's a couple people, and
Right.
I found out later that those few people had actually gone to the art and design high schools in New York.
Yeah.
So I kind of just put two and two together and just said okay, they've had more time to practice than I have. So um, that's I just sat down and said, well, I'm going to fight
Yeah.
and just get practicing. But yeah, I would say that I say this to my kids, I say it to anybody. You know, two things: one, follow your passion, and two, get a good education.
Right.
Uh,
There you go.
and that's really important.
Yeah. You can do both. Two birds with one stone, huh?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, so that's awesome. Yeah. I guess I had a little passion. I not very good at drawing, not very artistic, but I always found it interesting to create stuff. And a couple years ago, I've discovered like sculpting with clay.
right.
Uh,
Very
and
hard.
this yeah, very difficult. And
Yeah.
I was obsessed with it for a solid 4 or 5 months, and I was researching everything I can. How do you sculpt a nose? How do you sculpt a hand? How do you sculpt facial structures for a male or a female? And I was really obsessed with it, and it's something again goes back to my title, Nerd Without Order. I couldn't stick with it. Yeah, just recently revisited it. Try to find characters that I can sculpt and use as reference that are easier than just very complex characters. But I found it easy to sculpt monsters, and I know that's something that you like. Monsters. I actually have here off camera. This is a sculpture. This is the only sculpture I ever sculpted. And it's a clicker
There you go. Right.
from The Last of Us. And I figured it's so easy because he doesn't have a nose or eyes. All I had to do was sculpt this fungal algae-looking character. So uh, it was just something I dabbled in for a little bit. But is there any other things you did other than just drawing, or was it just drawing?
No, no. I mean, I played baseball and football,
Okay.
and I loved them both, and was pretty good. Um, I realized in football I was injury prone, right? And I was wide receiver, man. So I was
Growing
a
up in
target,
this, yeah,
a lot. But yeah, I had some good years, and then I realized that I wasn't going to make it as a football player or baseball,
right.
and said I'm going to focus on art. And let me tell you, my quarterback, he and I would become good friends, and he was really pissed off at me, and we never talked again. But um, it was starting to devote. I think it was at 14. I went to believe it or not, there was a cartooning school that opened up in New Jersey where I lived called Joe Kubert, and he was a famous guy who did Batman.
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't realize that. I just heard cartooning school, and I said, "Mom, I gotta go."
Wow.
We go there, and they're like, "Well, this is for people wanting into comic books and everything." But they saw my passion, and Joe said, "You know what? Come on Saturdays, every Saturday, and he can just
Mhm.
sit and draw with the artist." And so
Wow.
I did that for I don't know a year or two, and
That's great
uh,
experience.
oh, it was
That's
phenomenal.
great.
I mean, my stuff. They were like, "Well, I don't know how to help you because you're doing political cartoons and you're doing all kinds of. You got your own style."
Right.
Um, but they were very helpful. And then I took painting lessons and watercolors and all that, and just to learn because
Your
that's
craft your craft just kept getting better and better from that point.
yeah, I was practicing every day, all the
Mhm.
time, and uh, that's what I figured you had to do, and I just loved it. So
Yeah.
but we have believe it or not, we have a piano player next to us. He's 16, and that's all he does.
Wow.
And when I was talking to his parents, the way that they talk about him playing and having to practice every day. I'm like, because they give them I forget the name is, but Prodigy or whatever. Yeah, but
Yeah. Oh, Prodigy. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, and I was thinking that sounds like the way I grew up as an artist, just practicing. Now, there's one other thing with art that I learned really young, and that is it's not just the talent they're looking for. That's what they observe at first, but they want your ideas.
Okay.
And so it wasn't just good for me to draw a picture of an apple, but I had to draw it with a bite taken out or from a crazy angle or special lighting, right? So
Okay.
you learn that after a while they want ideas. So you're starting to like figure out how to develop ideas and think differently. And when I went to college, they didn't, I'm like, oh, good, they're going to teach me how to be a better watercolor, or whatever. And they're like, no, you do that on your own. What we're going to do is we're going to push you how to come up with great ideas.
Okay.
And so I've been working on how to come up with ideas my whole life.
Okay.
And I think that's really helped in well, obviously it's helped in video games because you need to come up with ideas on a deadline.
Right.
All the time. All the time.
And that's definitely a topic I'll have us for us later.
Sorry, I'm preempting you.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. That's fine. It's foreshadowing. There you go. So yeah, that's great, right? Art, something that you obviously accomplish now, even to this day, and you still practice it. You still do it on a regular basis. I know I follow you on Instagram. You're constantly posting sketches of your work, and it's awesome. It's great work, right?
I'll tell you another thing that I did. And it sounds, you talk about nerdy, but it really wasn't, right? But it has that connotation. Is that I was an Eagle Scout.
Okay.
So
hey man, you know how to survive in the wilderness. I don't.
Oh man, especially you're talking Jersey, man. 4 or 5 months out of the year, it's like 10 below.
Right.
We would go up in New York, and I've camped out, done wilderness survival. I mean, I could start a fire with like a toothpick, but
dude, that's awesome. That's cool.
I don't like camping anymore. I got burnt out, man. Give me another hotel.
That's awesome. Hey, so transitioning to our next question, because I know we can talk about this all day, but to move on for the sake of moving on, you being an artist, right? You being an artist, how does that I don't know, being an artist yourself help you design and create a video game? Like how does that work? I mean, you're really good at drawing, and now you have all these ideas, and now you want to make a game out of it. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes I get really labeled where it's like, well, you're an artist, so you're really good at the visual stuff in your game. I'm like, well, I did come up with a few of these other games.
Right.
Because, when I started in the field, there were engineers and there were artists, right? So you had to start designing. Now it was very simple back then, right? But I was lucky enough, and I didn't realize. I realized it a little bit later, but my first company was a guy named David Crane and Gary Kitchen. Now, David Crane is now in the Hall of Fame. He came up with Pitfall, and he was one of the original founders of Activision.
That's crazy. That's awesome.
Yeah. So when David spoke about design, he was an engineer, but when he talked about design, he was a man of few words. But when he spoke, you listened, right? And some of the stuff that he said back then is still right today.
Wow, still implemented today. That's pretty crazy.
And so I spent a couple of years with Gary Kitchen and him and learning design, and because as I'm creating my levels, I'm designing them as well. And that was a lot of fun to me. It was like, okay, I would draw them out, and then I would go create them in art.
Okay.
And then my next company after that, I went out to Capcom, and the next guy who was my boss, although he was in Japan, he came all the time, was a guy named Okamoto, who is famous for Street Fighter.
Yeah,
And the few things he taught me about
that's crazy.
characters and level, things like that, I'm like, oh my God, and fighting.
Yeah,
So I've been lucky enough to have some really good designers wrapped around me a lot of times. And so I design, when I think about design, I design things that I want to do.
right.
Like Advanced Warfare. I just remember saying, well, I want to jump really high.
Yeah,
And, okay, now go find a way, right?
right.
I
And
remember at the end of Modern Warfare 3, and I wrote this not too long ago, but I get a call. I'm doing a 30-day tour for Modern Warfare 3, and I get a call, and they say you need to go to Russia, and I'm like, no, the Russians are the bad guys in my game.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, you
So
won't come back. You won't come
yeah,
back.
I was definitely worried, and I vowed to myself then. I'm like, my next game is not going to have a country as the
The
as the
enemy.
bad guy.
Yeah.
So then it forced me to come up with like an idea, and that's why I came up with the PMCs.
Okay,
Um,
that's cool.
but you can come at things from research. When you come up with ideas, I'll research, or I'll come up with things that I visually see. But to
Right.
me, it's listening. It's everything. I'll give you an example. Like I was looking for we had for Dead Space. We were doing a trailer. I wanted to
Right.
do something different with the audio and everything. And so
Right.
I'm I think it was Gears of War had just come out with Mad World, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool, right?
Oh man, that was a good
Yeah.
trailer. That was such a good trailer.
So I'm kind of searching, thinking about it, and I come home one evening, and my 3-year-old daughter is singing "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," and I'm like, that's
That's
it.
it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. Oh,
It's keeping your mind kind of open to it, but it's not just it's not just this visual thing. What I think how artist has helped me be a better designer is
mhm,
because art being an artist has taught me how to come up with ideas.
right. And it's crazy how influential something like just Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, it's such a simple child song, but when it's put in the context of this survival horror game, it's like, ooh, this is
Yeah,
an eerie song. And now hearing it now in today's like being an adult or being older, just whenever you hear it, you think, oh crap, I'm about to be on the Ishimura, right? Or
yeah,
like a
yeah. Well,
Necromo's about to come out of that drawer or something. But yeah, that's pretty awesome. That's just crazy to, it's just not art. It's so many other things than just art. Uh,
yeah,
so transitioning into our next question. Of course, you love all sorts of things, right? You love movies, you love video games, you're an artist. Uh, what are some of your favorite sci-fi or horror movies? Because you're pretty well known for doing horror. I know you made some Call of Duty games, but
yeah.
everybody loves your horror games. Games that influenced you the most. What are some of your favorite or most influential games that inspired you?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's. I love Silent Hill 2, and just I believe that even though I'll play, a couple of Resident Evils lately have been really good because they're more realistic to me,
Yeah,
and
they've been good.
you know, and not as sometimes they get a little frustrating when I'm just running away from somebody. But
Mhm.
man, I love Resident Evil 4, even though that had some scary moments, even though it was stylized a bit.
Right.
Um, I wouldn't say it's the scariest game in the world, but it really, really influenced Dead Space in some ways differently than you think. Like the first thing I thought of was like, okay, I'm going to make a game and I'm going to walk and shoot,
Right.
right? And
Re-
everybody at that
Res-
time was like, "That's crazy, Glenn. You can't.
yeah.
That's not going to be scary." I'm like, "No, I think it can be done."
Yeah.
Um, and then Silent Hill, man, when you're in that fog and you get the Geiger counter and oh man, that was really, really good. And then when the siren went off about um, with Pyramid Head.
Right.
I want to use that mechanic somewhere in the game someday. It's just brilliant, right? It got me
Yeah, for
scared.
sure.
Yeah,
For sure. And I
yeah.
think back to like Resident Evil 4, what was that, 2004 it came out?
This
No,
is
2005 or 6. Dang, I can't even
Yeah,
remember.
6 or 7 because I finished it right before I started Dead Space.
Yeah, and so I remember, I think what implemented the horror in that game was that you couldn't move and shoot, right? You had to
Yes,
stop and then
yes,
shoot, and it
yeah.
left you open to a vulnerable attack.
But the funny thing is, at that time, I thought it was cheap.
Yeah,
Although I loved it and I understood it,
yeah, yeah,
and there were times I was stuck and I'm like, I got to shoot, and
yeah.
there were sometimes I'm like, that feels like there's got to be another way. What's
Right,
that?
right, right.
You know?
Dude, I was let me see, I think I was 8, 9 when I first played that game, or when that game came out and I played it. It's freaking scary when you're 8, 9 years old.
Oh,
I
no,
thought it,
don't get me wrong. There was some
yeah,
moments, man. Yeah, yeah, no
I
doubt.
was freaking scared. And then just recently, I didn't know, like Silent Hill 2. I don't know, I was like 3 years old when that game came out, 4 years old. But they're making the remake, and I'm definitely looking forward to playing that game for the
I
first time
hope.
ever. Are you? What do you mean you hope? You have some insider scoop that
No,
they
I don't know. I've been hearing that rumor, like Kojima, and so everybody's going to be making a remake of that game. So I hope they
That's
do.
true. Well, they released that trailer. Did you see that trailer?
Yeah, that's true. Well, yeah, you got to believe that, but yeah,
That's
we'll
true.
see.
You never know. Kojima had to cancel his Silent
Exactly.
Hill project. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been cool. Okay, but what was I? Where was I going with this?
The PT was a scary.
Dude, I wish I could have played that game. I found out about PT like a month after they took it off the PlayStation.
You can still, yeah. You haven't played that yet,
I've
man.
never. I've
It's a
watched it.
cool
I've watched.
thing that is freaking awesome, right? It is scary. It is great. It's brilliant in its own way.
It's so
Um,
Kojima, because I felt like he had almost like the entire world trying to figure out this puzzle, and
Yeah, I
it
know.
was
It was just a brilliant little piece. Yeah, I
so
thought
inspirational.
Condemned. There was a couple. I liked Condemned. Was
Condemned
great.
was good.
Kind of first person.
Mhm.
The original Doom scared the heck out of me, even though the graphics are crap nowadays. Um,
Now
and
Doom is just like an arcade. It's not super scary anymore. They definitely took the horror element out of Doom, in
it's
my
like a
opinion.
crazy shooter. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, in my opinion. Well, so obviously influential games obviously inspired some of your works, and I say it in a positive way. Uh, and now I want to take a trip back. We kind of broke the ice. Say, let's take a trip back to the very first game that you
Uh-huh.
worked on,
Yeah,
and the Barbie game.
there we go.
How did you start this? When I hear Glen Schofield, the horror master, at some point, you hear all of these games. You started with Barbie. Well, how
Yeah.
did you start at Barbie, and any takeaways that you got from working on the game or on that Barbie game?
Yeah, there's only been 14 of us at this company. We grew pretty quick after that. But when I came on, I think there was about 5 artists, 5 or 6, and they all thought it would be fun to give the new guy the Barbie game. Right? They didn't want to do it. They were working on Simpsons and a couple other things, and so they're like, "Give me Barbie." And I was just thrilled to be making a video game, right? So I'm like,
Right.
I don't care. And so
Yeah.
I do what I usually do, which is I do some research. So I did some research. I went to like Toys R Us and I checked out Barbie, and was trying to understand it as much as I possibly could.
Right.
And I know I bought some Barbie dolls and I brought them back, and the guys would put a purse on my desk from time to time, thinking it was a joke, but I took it pretty serious.
Yeah.
And
Hey, there you go.
yeah, we made these. I made the game, and at the end of the day, like at the end of the year, I should say, that the Barbie game outsold all of our other games, and Barbie usually does, right? So
There you,
they made me art director,
there
and
you go.
yeah, so I got the last laugh. I was now boss of these guys. Now
That,
that's
that was the biggest mistake they could have done, right? They're trying to I guess haze you in a way, but you ended up
Yeah,
turning it
yeah,
upside down. That's cool.
they did, and I gave it back to them.
That's awesome. So, obviously Barbie, there's a new Barbie movie coming. Are you gonna go watch the new Barbie movie?
I'm not that compelled to go see it. No.
Would you remake the Barbie game with the stuff that you've learned over the years? What kind of Barbie game would it be? Would it be a girly game or would it be a survival horror Barbie
It'd have
game?
to be dark. Yeah, everything now. Well, I don't know about dark, but it would have to be more of an action game.
All right, there you
Yeah,
go. Well, good luck getting that license right with that Barbie license.
I know.
All right, so that's Barbie. That's 1991, right? That came
Yeah, I
out
know. Dude. Thanks for that.
1991. So,
Yeah,
hey, I was born in 95. I'm starting to realize that time is just it's going by so quickly and it sucks.
yeah, tell me about it.
So let's fast forward to 2003. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Dude,
Right,
I freaking love that game. I have it in my PS2 case right now. I
right,
played the hell out of that game and it was that and the Two Towers obviously before that. I love Lord of the Rings as a franchise.
right, right.
Big fan of that stuff and that game was just it was awesome. It was awesome. I couldn't stop playing that game.
Thank you,
Uh,
man. Yeah,
the different character choices, all that stuff. It was just awesome. I always loved playing as White Gandalf,
yeah.
Gandalf the White.
Big, big game. I can't tell you the pain and suffering we put in to make that game. It's actually legendary for uh, the crunch issues that
Right.
were on it. And but in the end, we were really happy with what we came out with. There was we. It's the first time that so I was watching over it for the first year while there's another team that was making Two Towers. They were finishing Two Towers.
Okay.
And Neil Young was in charge of that. His name was Neil Young, not the singer. And so for the first year, uh, I was watching over some of the design. Basically, the team that was there were doing some design, and they're building an engine. And I remember at some point, I'm like, this engine's going nowhere.
Right.
And so I kind of looked around EA, and I'm like, got a lot of engines here. And I
Mhm.
went to Neil, who was eventually going to come back and be in charge of it.
Right.
And then I was going to be, I'm his executive producer, right? So
Okay.
I said to him, why don't we use the Tiger Woods engine? It's got long fields like we need, and it's got a clubhouse at the end, which is a castle like the game would be.
Wow.
And so we converted the Tiger Woods engine into the Lord of the Rings engine. It was perfect.
That's
Um,
crazy.
and it was the first time I was in charge of designing the levels and building the levels and all that. Matter of fact, I left the exec area and I moved out into with the team. I actually put a chair out and a desk out into the hall and
Okay.
just sat with them and so it was the first time I decided to use like artists to build the block worlds. They
Right.
had design help, but they were such handcrafted worlds that starting off as blocks didn't work out well. Um, and since then, I've been using that technique or adopting that technique as much as possible. Um, it was a tough one because we went to E3, which is I guess June. And we
Mhm.
came back, and the company asked us to make a co-op game, and the game's coming out in October.
That's
And so
crazy.
we decided to run backwards through the world and see what it broke, and just fix all that. But the co-op turned out to be really fun.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I never had anybody to play the co-op with me. None of my
Yeah,
friends at the time liked Lord of the Rings. I was the only one that was into that. I love the design of like orcs and stuff that kind of creeped me out at that age, so that's why I was so into
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But now that I think about, man, the Tiger Woods game, y'all use that engine. And now I'm thinking like, yeah, there were stretches where I would be running along with my companions for like a long time, fighting
Yeah.
enemies along the way. Uh, Obviously, that's the perfect example of you drawing an apple and now you're drawing it from a different perspective or a different lighting, or you took this apple, the Tiger Wood engine, and then you changed the lighting on it and turned it into the Lord of the Rings. And
Yeah,
that's
it
correct.
was. Well, it's just kind of thinking out of the box, right? And
Right.
you have to a lot of times.
Right.
Um, but no, it was at the end of the day, we were so proud of that game. It sold a lot.
That was
It was,
so good.
yeah, yeah.
That was a good game, man. So Lord of the Rings, that was 2003. Let's fast forward to no, that's not my first. I think that was my second 007 game, From Russia with Love. I'd first gotten Nightfire, and then this was my next game. This was my next
Yeah,
007
yeah.
game.
So we were in between bonds. They gave me the bond license, and
Mhm.
which was a great honor. It really was. I'm very appreciative. And so I'm working with the bond, people down at GM, and they don't know it's not going to be Brosnan, and they hadn't picked, um, uh, you know,
You
uh,
Bond yet?
Craig yet. So I thought it was going to be Clive Owen at the time, and they did too.
Wow.
But there was a couple of years in there, and we had an obligation that we had to fill. So I suggested that we do From Russia with Love, and so um, my boss comes to me and he says, "Hey, look, back then EA had you went into a big franchise review meeting once a quarter.
Right.
All the execs there. I mean, the EA was very daunting. All just guys were just well known in the field, and so they were like, my boss is like, "Hey, look, the SKU plan's all filled up." But you've been working pretty hard on this idea. We'll give you 15 minutes at 9 o'clock. You'll be the first one. You go in, you show them what you're doing, and so that they get a glimpse of what you've been working on. And that was we had about a month and a half left before that was, or a month, right? So I said to my team, I said, screw that. Let's
Yeah.
do the best freaking presentation we can do, and let's suggest we get Sean Connery. So we did. We did this. We built it. Oh man, it was a really great.
I'm stressed out just listening to this. All right, I'm stressed out. Keep
Okay,
going.
I went in there with an hour-long presentation. Whether it was going to be 15 minutes or not was really up to them to stop me. And I swear it was like after a lot of questions, an hour and a half later, it was Don Matrix. He's the president, and he just like everybody's quiet, and he's like, "Why the hell wouldn't we make this game?" And he goes,
Yeah.
"You go out and you go get Sean Connery." I was like,
What a crazy feeling, Sean
"Oh,
Connery.
it
Now,
was great." Yeah, yeah.
now I remember the box art, right? Iconic box art, probably one of the top five box arts on me. Did you, or in my opinion, did you have any hand in drawing any of that artwork? With Sean Connery on the cover, you have the love interest in the back, bright red, Sean Connery in full color. Everything else is just in red. I love that box art. If I could have a poster,
I
I'd get a
think we
poster.
got it from some of the original stuff for that movie.
Right. Yeah.
And then I think we definitely tweaked it. So it wouldn't look completely like that, but
Right.
there was definitely some tweaking.
Man.
Um,
That
yeah,
also had
one.
that game also had a multiplayer, didn't it? I remember playing multiplayer with like I'd get a friend to play it with me, and it was like a team deathmatch type thing, third person team deathmatch.
No,
You sure? Well, what am I saying? You're the one that made the game.
but
I,
my
I
memory's probably worse than yours. No, we didn't do that. We were lucky. We got uh, the uh-oh. Okay. We were lucky that we got the game out, right? Because
right.
but let me just for a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Working with Sean Connery, like his agent was like, "Glenn, you got to be really. This is Sean Connery, be polite and all that." And I'm like, "Well, course, he's Sean Connery, right?
Yeah.
He scared the heck out of me, and I'm not normally scared of celebrities, right? They're just humans. But I go down there and I get to know him. He's a nice guy, and like I found out he hated his agent, and he would say like, Schofield, you tell that agent he owes me a
Oh.
laptop, right?
Oh my goodness. That's so
It was,
crazy, man.
oh man, it was. I said, one night I said, hey, Sean, I'd like to take you out to a nice dinner here. The places we had to go to the Bahamas. That's where Sean lived. So I shot it all down. Luckily, there was a world-class recording studio down there where all the great rock groups would go to get away from their fans.
Oh, so that's where you went and got his audio for the game.
Yes.
Oh,
I spent
okay.
a couple of weeks with him down in the Bahamas, dude. I had we talk about a business trip, and I'm working with Sean Connery. I'm down in the Bahamas with a Jeep with no top on. When we'd have time off, we just hit the beach and go in the water, which is like 98 degrees. It was just it was.
That's awesome. That's
awesome.
pretty amazing.
And we going out to dinner with him, like the everything parts as Sean Connery walks through, right?
Larger than life, right?
Yeah. But he was a cool dude. Like I'd say, hey, Sean, want us to we'll pick you up in a car. And he goes, I'll drive myself.
Oh, he's independent, man. He can do it himself.
Yeah.
That's cool, man. It's good to hear that, as big as a celebrity that he was, it seemed like he just pretty down to earth, pretty chill guy.
Yeah, he got me drinking tea because every day we're drinking tea, and he's like, I got this from Michael Stipe of REM. And I'm like, what? I'm getting my tea from REM or something.
Yeah, that's so crazy. That's awesome, man. Well, yeah, again, that was probably that's my favorite Bond game for sure.
Oh, really? Thank you.
And I'll never forget the intro to that game. The dinner party scene, you get the jetpack, you start shooting. Man,
that was crazy.
That was awesome. I don't know how difficult it was to make that, but I surely it has a lasting impression on me.
Well, here's the hard part. We had to take Sean's voice, which was a little bit older, and we had to run it through special filters. Okay. Then we had to put it on the face of this younger character, right? But we couldn't we didn't have that kind of facial stuff that we have nowadays. So we had to go get an actor, and we had to check an actor who had the facial structure of young Sean Connery.
Wow.
Right? So here's what he would do. We would run old Sean Connery saying the line.
Right.
Then he would do the line, and then so it was close to mouthing.
He's pretty much just trying to imitate. Yeah.
We put the mouth on, but then we'd have to put the audio later.
Oh my God.
It was crazy.
That's stressful.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of trying to sync audio. That's why I'm doing this on this platform, just trying to sync audio with a video, and then now you have to sync the movement of somebody's lips with the audio. That's just crazy.
I don't know how we even found a guy who could do all that stuff, but it was
that's crazy, man. So Russia with Love, that's 2005, and now obviously something that everybody loves you for. Of course, everybody loves Callisto, man. Maybe not everybody, but there's a lot of people that do love it. But Dead Space, 2008. Yeah.
There's a little story there, right? Because I'll bring this up. There's a little controversy where we'll see. I'm the co-creator of Dead Space. Well, I'm not. Like there's no gray area. This was at the end of so From Russia with Love came out, and the score wasn't as high as I wanted, right? Okay. And at that time, I was really bummed. I was bummed, man, because they had come to me. EA had come to me with a couple months left, and they said, by the way, Godfather's going to miss this Christmas. You need to get the game out on time. And I'm like,
okay, Godfather 2, right? You're working on Godfather 2?
Yeah, but this was Godfather 1. So this was at the end of Bond, right? And they said, by the way, we got to take 10 people from you. I'm like, what? So we got the game out and scored a little less than I wanted. I was really bummed. And they said to me, okay, we want you to make the next Bond game, but you have 1 month less. And we've got to take another 10 people. And I'm like, I'm not going to do it. Just not going to do it.
And did they want you to continue with Sean or a new Bond?
A new Bond idea.
Okay.
Yeah. So we didn't know what it was going to be. It was, just come up with an idea. So I said I'm not going to do it, and they kept pushing me, and I quit. I had gotten another gig. I wouldn't leave without something. And they kept pressuring me to come back and do whatever. What will it take? And finally, it's the last day. I get my 2-week notice, and I get a call in my car, and I had just parked in the parking lot, and it was the interim president of EA at the time, Paul Lee. And he said, Glenn, what is it going to take? And they were like thinking it's going to be money and all this. And I said, I just want to make my own game. And he said, oh, okay, well, we don't make that many new IPs, but what do you want to make? I said, sci-fi horror. And he said, oh, geez. And he said, oh, man, that's tough.
Yeah.
And I explained to him, look, you don't have to be number one, but you can be behind Resident Evil, right?
Yeah.
And Silent Hill is far distance number 2. We could be number 2 right away,
right.
And so he agreed to it. Right? Okay, we'll do it. We'll do a sci-fi horror. What is it? Okay, what do you need? I said I need 18 to 20 people for a year. Put me in a corner. Forget about me. Leave me alone. And he said, okay, write it down. And I swear, Silicon Valley kind of thing. I took out a piece of paper out of my glove compartment, wrote these things down. And, he said, okay, so what is it going to take from you? And I said, well, I was looking for a new house. So just pay a 1.5 off my mortgage and I'll be happy. And he's like, what? Yeah. He goes, well, we don't do that. And I said, well, Paul, you're the president.
Yeah. Hey, strong arm this guy to pay the point off.
Consider it done. So that's all I asked for. It sure helped me get a house, let me tell you. But the idea for it kind of grew, and a little bit. I wanted to do something new, something really scary. I had this idea in my head, because I loved Event Horizon. I wanted to do something on a spaceship, just being really scary. And I always like stuff that's evolved from humans. So it was all starting to come together. I put the team together, and there's one thing I thought of. Right. So after Bond, at Bond, I was thinking budget. I was thinking getting out on time. I was thinking all this stuff, right? Not that I disregard everything, but I only thought about one thing. Well, I would say the two mixed. I thought about the fans and I thought about quality. That was it. Just everything we put in was quality, right? Now you'd say, well, didn't you do that before? And it's like, yes, but those were the days of making licenses. Right, when it was about getting it out on time, making it look like the license, and making sure it was that story. Well, this is a brand new thing, I had done a couple at Crystal. I'd done smaller ones like Blood Omen 2 and all that, but this was the first big.
Oh, that's right, Legacy of Kain. That's right.
And there was a couple others that were small. I didn't even want to mention them. So that's that. We created a war room right away. There's 5 of us in a room every night. Let's play, and then okay, next day, you guys, we're gonna do this. And every inch of it was just really a labor of love. But it took a lot to get it through EA, man. It wasn't right away because they didn't know what to do with it. Right, it wasn't something they were used to.
Was it just the newness that scared them, or was it the concept?
It was the sci-fi hardness of it. Especially the European marketing. But so what I did was, because EA was turning out 60 games a year, man, you had to get your game noticed. So we were going to like offsites, right? And I was having posters made that said Dead Space, just for internal. And I would go to the offsite, and I would go into the men's room, and I would paste them up at the urinals. I pasted them up into the bathroom.
Dude, no.
I made some calendars up and gave them out to the executives. I mean, I did whatever I could to sell internally, because
Right.
it was a tough sell, right?
Just get everybody involved. Like, okay, this is looking okay.
But,
Did you put necromorph pictures in the restroom?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, no, dude. Well, if you're constipated, you're not anymore, right? That's
there was, oh yeah, people remember them.
That's crazy.
But you know what? It didn't take that to do it, right? The other thing they made me do is, like, you got to go get a director, a hard director who's going to help you, because you don't know how to do scary. And I'm like, well, au contraire, we'll prove it to you. But it took me so long to get for them to hook me up, but I did get to go to Wes Craven's house. I spent a few hours with him.
Wow.
Cool. I had lunch with Eli Roth, and eventually I hired James Wan of Saw. But his big deal is he's great with camera. But so there was nothing he could really do, because camera has nothing to do with the game, right? It's all about you. So, and he didn't get the concept of being able to not know where the scare was coming from, and be able to
the surprise.
Yeah. And I said, it doesn't matter if they miss the scare, because the game is going to be long enough that you'll get enough in there,
Right.
But within about 6 months, we had a really proven 15, 20 minutes. So much so that the EA started when they would bring guests in, and they brought a lot at the time, they would start to show them Dead Space. And they even brought in Mikami, who created Resident Evil. And at the end of it, he just started bowing in front of me, and I said, dude.
Shinji Mikami bowing in front of you.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I should be bowing in front of you. And,
hey, man, that's crazy.
That was validation. Validation.
That's him knighting you right there.
Yeah, we were in the right direction. So
that's awesome, man.
There was a confidence that was growing, that we knew how we could scare you. That's awesome. And then we added the dismemberment came, and I remember, like, the guys finished the weapon, the plasma cutter, and they shoot it, and I'm like, okay, cool, man, now I want it to turn. And they're like, what? Yeah, I'm like,
come on, Glen, come on, we just made this, now you want more to this.
Yeah. And but I'll tell you a real quick story. It was like, about, not everything comes, everybody thinks, oh, you have the design done at the beginning of the year, beginning of the game, and you have a lot of it, right? But you leave growth for as you go through the game, because that time goes on. So as the game is coming along, I'm about a year in or something like that, maybe a little less. I'm realizing there's something missing. It needs something throughout, right? So my thought was, it needs a religion. And so how do you come up with a religion, right? And it's based on faith. So I got a few ideas that I'm thinking about. So I'm researching something in National Geographic, and I come across an article on the Chichen Itza, I think is how you pronounce it. It's the great meteor that hit in the
Yucatan.
Yeah, exactly. That wiped out the dinosaurs, right? And what they were talking about in the article is that the scientists wanted to go down and pull it out, right? And figure out what how big it was and what's it made out of, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So I'm like, I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, wait. Wiped out the dinosaurs, brought in the Ice Age, brought in mammals, created man. So I'm basically like, that meteor created man, right? That was my art math.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just asked myself one question: what if it wasn't a meteor? And so that's why I came up with the marker. And the faith you have is that some people believed that it was done on purpose, and some people believed it was just an accident. And if it's an accident, it's not a god. If it's on purpose,
it's man-made. Oh, it's God. Yeah.
God. And so now we had the basis for a religion. It sounds simple. It wasn't as simple as it sounds, but
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of lore building, world building, and lore building behind all of that. But
Yeah,
man,
yeah.
that's crazy. Yeah, like
And then, yeah,
I got the marker here from the
there you go. Yeah,
from the remake. They had that collector's edition. But man, yeah, and like the language and all that, like the inscriptions on it. I mean,
yeah.
that's just stuff that you guys had to come up with.
Yeah, we came up with a language, and I swear the first day the internet had deciphered it.
Wow, that's great.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah, there was
the
stuff written in there. Glenn was here in the men's room. I mean, yeah, it was like, I
Oh,
didn't
really?
know.
It says things like that? Like,
Yeah, I didn't know it was in there either. Yeah, yeah.
that's hilarious. That's cool, man. So Dead Space, obviously, very influential. Not only were you inspired by other games to create Dead Space, but I mean, Dead Space itself has influenced games like that came after. Uh, One notable thing about Dead Space was the creatures, right? And something also that ties into your most recent game, Callisto, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But the creatures, right? The monsters in both Dead Space and Callisto are
Yeah.
all usually mutated, deranged humans. Why is that? Why didn't you just create like, I don't know, just like just like a six-legged alien or something? Why did they have to come
Well,
from a human?
yeah. So they were on Dead Space originally. I spent, I don't know, 5 6 months. I got some of the best creature guys in the industry, freelance, to do creatures. Based on underwater things, under this or that, and I was like, I was not happy with anything, right?
Right.
So there was a really good artist in the studio, and he's like, I know you're struggling with, they call me picky, but it was more like, no, that wasn't right for the game, right? It wasn't scary enough.
Right.
And he was learning this new 3D program. What do they call it? But he could just basically, he did it in front of me. So he said, what are you looking for? And I said, well, I'll tell you, the scariest thing to me is a deranged human, right? Because there is a sort of inherent thought that they have intelligence already, and you don't know what they're going to do to you, but they know how to hurt you.
Right.
And so that's what's scarier than a giant bug coming up and biting your head off or something, right? They're not. They may not. You may be scared of it, but
It's doing it out of instinct, not out of intent, right? Or like a
right, and you don't know. So I said, when I think about Friday the 13th or any of these movies, it's deranged human. He just doesn't stop, right?
right.
So I wanted something to do with that,
Okay.
and so yeah, I'm in both games came over. And if you look at Nazi zombies is deranged humans in its own way as well. I've thought about doing something. If I had the opportunity again, is to do something with a bigger world,
Right.
bigger universe. I kind of like the small, compact. What's the next crazy thing you could make? But
Right.
me and this guy just sat down for a couple of days, and he would sculpt what I was thinking, and then he would go home and tweak it, and he came back with the first one, and I'm like, dude, that's it. That's it.
That's it.
So we
The
spent
never
all this money on all these great guys, and it was basically just sitting there at the computer coming up with the first necromorphs. And then
Right.
from there, we were able to build a few more.
Do you think like so obviously creature and being a deranged human, that concept itself alone is, frightening. Think of Michael Myers, think of Jason Voorhees, somebody that's just constantly chasing you, and they seem to just be human. But do you think like the body horror maybe had any sort of influence in there, like because obviously they come from humans, but they're not normal human looking. They have like elongated arms. They're
Yeah, we got a little crazier as we
right.
went. There is, yeah, I think I should say deranged and deformed, because
Right.
even deformed human still has that innate quality to be smart enough to realize what hurts you.
Right. It still
But
looks like a human, but when it's something that doesn't look like a human, I feel like that psychologically kind of messes with your mind a little bit.
Yeah, well, as the game goes on, they get weirder and weirder. But I
Yeah.
think there's still part of you that goes, okay, they came from a human.
Right, right,
They
right.
don't necessarily have to look exactly like a human, but they came from one. So
Right. Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. So transitioning to our next question, Dead Space, necromorphs, how Dead Space came to be. What are your thoughts, if I could get your quick thoughts on like the remake? I know that you weren't, I don't know if you were, I think you weren't involved, right? You weren't really involved in the remake of this game. I mean, what are your thoughts on like, it's your work. If you kind of think about it, it's
yeah,
kind of
yeah. No,
like,
I thought that they did a really great job on it. I thought that
yeah,
they felt like they were dedicated and passionate about it, and that it it kind of oozed that in the game. They did a really good job.
right,
I felt weird, that they didn't even contact me or anything like that about just talking about it, or but maybe that's the way it goes with remakes.
right.
It's sometimes a little bit, when a big corporation like EA takes over, like, well, you don't want to talk to anybody else who's like, they're not at the company anymore or whatever. But I don't know if that was the case or what, but
That just doesn't seem right, because I mean, it's like
uh,
you kind of worked on it, but yeah, I mean, but think about it this way, right? The last 7 months, it's been the year of Glen Schofield, right? You release your new game, month later, they remake your old game. So,
it was a weird
so
time. I was competing against my own remake.
that is crazy, man. And then, of course, you guys had the span of like DLC for Callisto, and we'll talk about that in here in just a
Yeah, yeah,
moment. But the next question, so you make Dead Space. We fast forward from 2008 to 2011. Now you go from single player to multiplayer. Modern Warfare 3. How was that like? And the transition to Advanced Warfare. I think we mentioned a little bit about Advanced Warfare earlier, but Modern Warfare 3, from Dead Space to Modern Warfare 3. That's a big franchise.
yeah. Well, I knew at that time after Dead Space, uh, I wanted to make my own studio, and but I wasn't going to go out and raise money and go build something. What I really wanted to do was make games. So the quickest way to make games was to go to somebody and say, "I'll make a studio for you." Yeah, you don't make as much money, like, oh, you sell your company and all that, but my motivation was really making games, and just figured that you know I've always done well enough, so I never really worry about it. But getting on, I only would take Call of Duty. Only. That was the only
Oh,
one.
okay, so you
I went I
pursued
went
it.
I went directly after Call of Duty.
Wow,
And
that's cool.
yeah, because they at some point said, "Would you work on Marvel?" Or they, because they had the Marvel games, and I like, no, Call
Uh,
of Duty. So it took a while. It took that deal took a long time.
That's crazy.
Um,
If you don't
yeah,
mind me asking, what did they want you to work on Marvel, just in general, any Marvel game, or did they have a hero specifically they
no,
wanted?
they just said, "Would you work on any of the Marvel franchises?" And I said, "No, I want to." It
Yeah,
didn't matter which
yeah,
one to me. I just wanted
yeah.
Call of Duty, because
Okay.
Call of Duty was one of my favorite games. Modern Warfare
Good,
2
man.
was just brilliant to me. They both were brilliant, one and two,
Right.
and I just wanted to work on them.
Yeah.
Um, but I went to them with an idea of making a third-person action game um, in Vietnam, based on being a little scary in the tunnels. Just finishing Dead Space, right? So
Wow.
we actually worked on that for about 6 months.
Right, and it's set in the Call of Duty. It was supposed to be set in the Call of Duty
Oh, it
universe.
was. I mean, we had this in the jungle. We had a B-52 bomber coming down at
Wow,
you. You're running through a river. We turn the camera.
that's
You
crazy.
dive and turn the camera, and you see the B-52 go over you as you dive in this canyon. I mean, it was nuts, right?
So so third person, because Call of Duty's always been first
It's
person.
third person. Yeah, yeah.
But third person, I guess, is that when they started doing like the special ops and you can go into third person? Was that your idea or?
No, it was just we just said we're going to make a third person, and they said that we would like to try something like that. So
Right.
and so
Maybe.
that's what we made. We called it Fog of War at the time, because
Wow.
it was Vietnam. So
That's crazy,
Um,
man. I did not know that. And then, okay, so you go from Modern Warfare 3 to, which is still
no, then
somewhat.
they came to us one day and they said, "Hey, a bunch of execs come up one day and they're like, "Hey, we'd like you to make Modern Warfare 3." And uh, I said, "Yeah, of course we will." Are you kidding
Of
me? That's
course.
what I'm here for.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you go from that, right? Modern
yeah.
Warfare, it is Modern Warfare, but it's still in the sense still somewhat grounded. Now you go to
Oh, yeah.
Advanced Warfare and it's way more sci-fi than any of the Call of Duties before it.
Yep.
Now, I know it got maybe a little bit of negative backlash later on or maybe towards the beginning. I personally enjoyed it. I love being able to jump really high, and I'm sure as a designer or design standpoint, it was fun to create new avenues and alleys to create for the player. But
No,
like,
we didn't get a lot of backlash. I think the backlash
no?
happened after the third game was made with it, right? Because
Oh,
by
Advanced, yeah.
and
Yeah.
then Advanced Warfare did good. We scored
My
well.
apologies, my apologies.
No, it's fine. Yeah, there were some purists who were like, "Oh, you can't jump with it." But look, in every Call of Duty with so many people that play, you get purists that say your shotgun sucks. So,
Right.
um,
Infinite Warfare. I'm so sorry. That
oh,
was
Infinite. No.
yeah,
Yeah, Advanced Warfare was.
the one that people had backlash on.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was one that man, I designed this whole 50 years in the future. I came in with walking tanks, and I knew that Elysium was coming out, and
Yeah.
day after tomorrow, in which they had exoskeletons, right? And I'd
Very
studied
very
exoskeletons,
similar too.
but they weren't out yet, right? So I knew that by the time the game came out, people would understand what they were. But when I went into the big meeting with all the execs, right, and I had what I thought was just one of my best pitches with sci-fi, everything, they
Right.
were like,
Oh,
what are you nuts?
yeah.
Like this isn't called this is too far in the future, right? And I'm like, oh my god, I was devastated, right?
They'd
But
been
then
World War II the whole time before that, though.
I kind of went home
Yeah.
and I realized that what I did was I pitched too much at once, right? There was too much.
You
So
confused them. You
I
confused
came
them.
back and I gradually added. At the end of the day, not one thing was cut from Advanced Warfare that I put in. Matter of fact,
Wow.
the opening scene is walking tanks, and you know what?
Wow.
I made some rules. I said anything we put in the game is either in a theory, a hypothesis, or in a prototype, right?
Right.
And so one day, me and my they were like, "Well, I haven't seen a walking tank, right?" And I'm like, "Well, what if you took a small drone and you blew it up?" And they're like, "Yeah." But
Yeah.
so I go down to NASA with my partner at the time, and we go to NASA, and the guy gives us a tour for all day tour. We learned so much, right? And he goes, "Oh, by the way, we got a special treat for you. We're going to show you a walking tank." And they
That's
lower this
great.
thing out of the ground. I got still have pictures of it. Me and stand next to it because my partner's like, "I can't believe you, dude. I don't know how you come up with this stuff." And
Yeah.
it wasn't going to have a turret on it. It was going to have a drill to
Okay.
go onto asteroids and drill. But I'm like, I don't care. It's a walking tank.
Yeah.
So
Put a machine gun on it. That's crazy, man. That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean, like I said, Modern Warfare 3 to Advanced Warfare, of course, working on these. How was it going from Dead Space, a single player game, and now you're working on a multiplayer game? Because I know they had stories
yeah.
and campaigns, but like, how was that for you? How did you treat that? Like working
Well,
on
I designed the campaigns,
okay,
and I was in charge of the campaigns. And
okay,
what happened was the multiplayer, at least for Modern Warfare 3, was done by Infinity Ward. They were still together. So we that was our first go around. And we did some. We did a couple of maps, right? So we were
okay,
learning how to do maps. Um, then Advanced Warfare, now we did it, right? We did, I think, 80-90% of the game, and we had a little help. You always get a little, you have to, the games are just massive.
right,
And so we had multiplayer designers that would sort of design the maps out, but then you would use the art and the design and stuff like that from multiplayer. You would put that in there. So I would say that my I wasn't a significant contributor to, except for like getting the art direction right and getting the art right and getting. So I spent most of the time as sort of the creative director on it, where
Okay.
somebody else was in the trenches, doing the line of sights and all this stuff for the. Now, there's definitely stuff where I've added, like let's say,
Right.
hey, instead of this, let's put something else here, or you need something here, because we played it all the time.
Yeah.
And that was fun. We played the multiplayers all the time at night, and
That's cool,
and
man.
you would come up with stuff all the time.
Like, wouldn't it be cool to add something here or a pathway here or something?
Or
Yeah.
you would find that a menu didn't work right, and
Right.
and, I would spend some time with the graphic design of the menus, because sometimes you can get a simple button. You can confuse a player pretty quickly going from one menu to another if things aren't lined up or aren't graphic designed.
Right. Well, so Modern Warfare 3 was 2011. Advanced Warfare was 2014. We jumped to 2017.
Yeah.
And you create Sledge Hammer Studios, right?
Yeah. Well, that was for Modern Warfare 3. So we
that's my bad.
Yeah, so Sledge Hammer was created 2009, and we made 3 Call of Duty games. But
okay, all right. So Call of Duty. So now World War II, and now this changed the Nazi game, in my opinion, in a better direction.
That's good. That's good. Well, that was the plan, was to try and make something more realistic.
Dude,
not that, I mean, Treyarch is a classic, and everybody loves it, but I just wanted to put my own spin on it, of course.
It was so awesome, and of course the campaign was really good, and that's where I guess the first time you worked with Josh as well.
Yes, Josh was phenomenal. We had a fantastic crew there on that whole thing. We really cast a good group there. That was one where, so think about all 3 of them from a creative challenge.
Right.
Modern Warfare 3 was in, I had to work with Spec Ops guys. I had to study what was happening nowadays. So there was a lot of research, a lot of learning from, we hired Delta Force, we hired SEAL Team 6, SEAL Team 2, Rangers. We just learned. I flew in helicopters. I was in tanks. I was in everything, right? And so that was a different kind of research project.
Yeah.
Then I get to Advanced Warfare. Advanced Warfare is basically a new IP with a Call of Duty on it. Don't let anybody. Everything was designed from scratch.
Yeah.
And then I get to World War II, right? And so everybody votes. Hey, let's make World War II, right?
Yeah.
And then they go. Everybody high fives and like, we're making World War II, and they go leave, and I'm going. So who comes up with what part of World War II? And they're like, that's you. So I had to do. I did a deep dive on World War II, and so after about 2 months, I studied my grandfather. He was in World War II. I studied all kinds of like routes. Where would we go? The best one to get like a big game out of it in one was actually to do the Big Red One for start at Normandy. But I spent 3 years researching that. And we didn't have an ending, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when the campaign's over, they go, okay, yeah, good job, you go home.
Yeah.
But I'm reading this. I mean, probably 2 years in, right? And I read this small article about how that there was a concentration camp in Germany that was just for Americans. Nobody knew about it. It was kept secret. It was kept hidden. The American government said, the war is over. Don't bring it up. There was only 300 Americans in there, whatever. I read this and I'm like, what a great ending. So, because what happened was a couple of days before the end of the war, or it was the end of the war, or somewhere around there, and the Germans knew, the guards knew it was over. Mm-hmm. So it's in the middle of Aachen, Germany, and the Hürtgen Forest, I believe, and they just let them all go out in the snow, 4 feet of snow. These guys have had no food. They're not wearing much. And they're in the woods, and an American tank, I guess call it whatever you call them, was going through the woods. And with their lights on, they could see these ghost-like figures. And it was the Americans they let out. So the Americans found the Americans. And and so they had treated Jewish Americans pretty badly. So that's when we added our Jewish character into it, and so he fit in the end. So we brought a little politics in there. We brought a little bit, a few things like that into it. We wanted to, but look, at the same time, I also did research. I went to Germany, and I asked normal people. I'm like, if we had this game, like, how do you feel about it? And they said, look, we're not Nazis. We're Germans. We're not Nazis.
Right.
So do what you have to. So,
That's
but I spent 8-9 days in a van with. We hired the curator of the American World War II Museum down in Louisiana, and so he took us for we were in this van ride with this guy who wouldn't stop talking about World War II. But 12 hours a day, 14 hours a day, but we learned so much. Some of his stories, and he would take us to places. You're on a road that you didn't see anybody for like hours, and there would be a tank. Because the tanks were so big that they just left them where they were.
Just left them there. Yeah. That's crazy. That's crazy, man. And I'm sure
we went through, man.
I'm sure as you're doing all this research, you're sketching, right? I mean, you've got to be drawing
in the back of the van, and we're talking and I took millions of pictures. I mean, millions. Because we went from Luxembourg all the way to Aachen, Germany, and all through France and Belgium, and it was crazy.
That's crazy.
But it was like all three projects are completely different.
Yeah.
One's studying, so that's what I enjoyed creatively.
Right.
Was that each one for me was different. That's why I kind of left at the end. Was like, I think they want me to do World War II again. I'm good.
I'm out.
yeah. So, I love my time there at Activision.
Sledge Hammer, Activision. Yeah, and that's crazy. What a palette, right? Modern Warfare, way out in the future, Advanced Warfare, and then let's just dial it all the way back to World War II.
Yeah. Where there's not really imagination because you have to come up with setups and stuff, but you read a lot of because the weapons are the weapons.
Yeah, exactly. And so now, of course, another great thing of Call of Duty World War II, Nazi zombies, right? And we talked about a little bit about it. That Nazi zombies felt way different from any previous iteration of Nazi zombies. And I enjoyed the hell out of it. I see the Glen Schofield in there. You would throw in a jump scare every now and then, and it'd freak you out.
Yeah, man, we tried. It's hard to scare 4 people at once, but yeah.
Dude, and then and then like the zombies just super grotesque. What can you speak to like the design of those zombies? Because they weren't just decaying corpses. Some of them had like a metal jaw and like.
Oh yeah, no, there was
armament.
I was working with a guy named Chava, and who would build them, and he's like, "How do we make them different?" And I'm like, "Look, man, the Nazis experimented on humans, right? So let's do crazy freaking experiments on these guys. A couple of heads. They've sewed things on. They sewed eyes closed, mouths shut. They've cut them open, and they used metal to hold them together. I said, make them look like they were in pain. And, whether they were, I've never really talked about whether they were experimented on as humans and then made zombies, or did they experiment them as zombies? But that wouldn't make much sense, right? So it was just trying to do something you haven't seen before with zombies, because there's like every zombie movies out there, but I hadn't seen like these tortured souls like that. So that was a lot of fun.
Dude, every time I think about that, I think of like, I remember loading in, pick my character, pick whatever load I had at the very beginning, hit start, and then the first loading screen, it's just this grotesque zombie with white eyes, his skin is coming off, and he has that metal jaw. It scared the hell out of me the first, because I was playing it in the dark. Dude, I love that loading screen of just
crazy one. Yeah, he was cool.
The level design was great too, where you go upgrade your gun was like in this dungeon sewer, and there was just blood all over the ground, and it was man, it was good, man. That was
fire that would come out of the sewer system there, and
it was
all the flaming zombies coming out in the beginning. But we even had the one where you had to turn this crank, and there's a window there, and you knew a zombie was going to bust out, but it didn't matter. It still scared you because you didn't know
Yeah.
when it was coming out, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say anticipation. You're building the
Yeah,
suspense. Was it gonna pop now? Is it gonna pop now? And then boom, finally he gets you. And man,
yeah,
that
yeah.
I love that game. That's probably that's my second favorite Call of Duty. No offense, because
Okay.
the first Black Ops that was my first multiplayer experience, and the campaign was really good. And then it'd be World War II. I love that game. And then World at War, which is
That
also a
was a
good
great
one.
one too. And that's Treyarch as well. I mean, look, Mark Lamia and what he did with Treyarch over those years that I was there. I thank him for his help, and they did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, so now we're finally getting to it, Glenn.
Yep.
After making 3 Call of Duty games, why did you decide to go make Callisto back to the sci-fi horror?
Well, after working on the zombies, I was like, man, that scratched an itch again, and uh, I just wanted to get back to what I really love. Um, and not that I gotta say I said that wrong, because I love making games, right?
Mhm.
Um, but I wanted to get back to just sort of this imagination, and that sort of thing. With you could go anywhere. There's a little research in all these games, but
Right.
um, so I had been right after World War II. I went to the desert for couple weeks by myself, and to relax. And it's a wellness place. You relax, and you just need that, right? And exercise, get back in shape, that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
it was in the desert. It was in Tucson. And so every day I would go out later in the day. I would go out to the desert, and I would just draw and come up with ideas. And by the time I was done with those couple of weeks, I had about 12, 15 game ideas. And
Wow.
I still got some now.
That's
And
exciting.
because I'll go back, I keep them all, and I keep all my stuff in notes, and I have hundreds and hundreds of notes, and I'll go back in and tweak them, and just keep them up to date and add new ideas. So one of them was called Meteor Down, and that was this one. And I know everybody called it, oh, he's gonna make Dead Space 4, and some people say, oh, you made it too much like Dead Space, and other people say it's not enough like Dead Space, so it's kind of weird. But you know, I was, I'm really proud of what we were able to do in the time with the new team, a new studio, a new engine, a new tools, a pandemic. We also did on new platforms. The new consoles came out after 6 months of us working on the PS4, and we had the Switch.
Right.
And so there was a lot of stuff, and then we had the pandemic.
Yeah,
Uh,
that was crazy. What that I mean, not terrible. I mean, that's a terrible thing that happened, but just the timing didn't help as well. And
I,
you kind of answered one of my future questions. Compared to Death Space, how did you come up with it? You were at this retreat, and you go out into the desert and draw.
yeah, yeah.
But
I come up with a lot of ideas when I'm drawing or painting. But sometimes an idea just comes at a weird time. But
right, and then differentiation, like yes, there are similar tones in
yep,
Callisto and Dead Space.
yep. And you would expect it, right?
Yeah, I mean, but what the difference is? What is it? The combat, right?
Combat to me. That's where
Uh,
we were going to change. Yes,
what's another differentiation that you
the
would probably?
brutality. So,
Yeah.
um, and we changed the camera a little bit so that
Mhm.
it would be more in your face. So the whole melee idea. That's why we built this. We call it the gore system, because I wanted it in your face. So the style of Western movies now,
Mhm.
horror movies, is very graphic, very brutal, very in your face. The blood
Yeah.
gets on the player or the character, right?
Or on the
It's not
camera.
like, yeah, and Dead Space was a lot more of shooting. It was a
Mhm.
little bit not quite as personal, although of course there were sometimes. But this game was about being. I wanted it up close and personal, like
It was
you were
more
in the
a
mess.
little bit more visceral, right?
Extremely visceral.
More
Yes, yes.
visceral.
And
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, like I would just say that everything was, the art direction and everything was in to help with that.
And
Um,
you guys added stealth to that game too. Like there's a form
yes,
of stealth.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, which
That
I
was
mean,
great. Yeah,
I really enjoyed. So yeah, so Callisto and Striking Distance Studio. So we're gonna skip around here. We're gonna go backwards. Obviously, we talked about you creating Callisto, but Striking Distance Studios. What can you speak on that? Like this is a new studio, and you are the CEO of the studio, founder of the studio.
yeah, yeah. I can tell you, just being the CEO and the game director is too much. You know, luckily, I've got some great people that are helping back me up on that. I got a great president in Stacy Harada, who's helps take a lot of the business, so I can spend more time on the game. And some people know Steve Paputzis, who's came from actually finishing directing Dead Space 2 and 3.
Okay.
And so there's some real good talent there. And it's been up and down, right? It's been Callisto is no lying. It was a polarizing game. Some people loved it, some people hated it. Some people didn't understand what we tried to change in a survival horror game, but those who did really loved it, and I get tons of emails and DMs and everything from people every day, and so I appreciate that. I thank them for that. Do I think we came out too early?
Maybe a little bit, right? Well,
Yeah,
I,
I mean,
like I said, I mean, it's a great game. There's enough differentiation for me uh, that it's like I can separate the two, and it's hard in today's society to separate, especially when a creator creates something and then they go create something else, and then you're just constantly comparing those two things
yeah,
together,
you're
and
right.
that's frustrating. I hate that. I hate that sometimes I feel like people should just take something for what it is, embrace it. And how do you feel about that specific product? And so,
That's what I've been trying to. I was trying to say is just like think of it as a separate thing. It's its own project. And then
mhm,
people were like, "Well, you used, I saw I saw your footprints all over, your fingerprints all over it." I'm like, "Sure, but when you go watch a Spielberg movie, I'm sure you see Spielberg's fingerprints all over it because you have a style. You turn the camera the same way. You do things,
mhm.
and you evolve, you change, and that's what I thought. There was enough of that in Callisto. I still do. I think that." Like the combat system is completely different, right?
Yeah,
It's something new for survival horror, and um, the mutation system that happened. That's some new stuff that we did, and
right.
just I'm still very proud of the game, and
Yeah,
I'm hoping that it will be looked back at someday as a really good sci-fi horror game.
right.
Um,
It's definitely a hidden gem, and I've been trying to advertise it to anybody. Like, dude, just don't think it's Dead Space. Just go in there, play it, think, and just give me your thoughts after you play the game.
yeah,
You
if you
know,
don't know it's me, I'm sure you're going to have a better time at it. 'Cause you're not going to have
right?
any idea that I did.
Preconceptions of like,
And then we had, there were a bunch of people on the team that had worked on it, but that was part of selling the whole idea. I think the scares were different. The
mhm.
brutality was different.
Oh yeah, it
It
was
was
definitely more brutal though. It was more brutal.
absolutely
I think we mentioned that
that was
earlier.
done on purpose. I mean,
Yeah,
nowadays it's not about which person which person lives. It's about what order they all die in. I mean,
yeah.
in a horror movie, I mean, that's what people were. Some people were pissed off with me for the DLC, and
Oh yeah. And
and
I'm be honest, I haven't played the final DLC, but I have played the harder difficulty modes, which I really
oh, okay,
appreciate.
okay. Then I won't say anything about it, but
Yeah.
it's it's out there, right? And I just
Okay.
say, hey, the ending, it's a horror. It's a horror.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. And take it for what it is, right?
yeah,
It
yeah.
is what it is. So early on in the development of Callisto, when you guys first announced it, of course, Striking Distance is under Crafton, correct?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And so this game, Callisto, this new game that gets announced, is kind of part of the PUBG universe. Now, PUBG is my most played video game. I play that
Is
nonstop.
it really?
I'm
Wow.
I'm addicted to it, man.
Wow. Wow.
And I play with my brother-in-law. We'll stay up late at night, and it's such a thrill for me to try to get a victory in that game.
Yeah, me
But
too. And
oh, you play PUBG as well?
I did for a while there, and then I just realized that I'm getting capped from some dude 2 miles away, and I got no, I got no
Dude,
chance.
dude, I vouch for PUBG. Over especially kids that are people that play Fortnite. It's like, no, man, this is realistic, or like there's bullet drop and all this. I appreciate the realism of
It's
PUBG, but
very, very realistic. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's hard for Western, you know, shooters because people are pretty much used to the Twitch type of shooter.
yeah. And see, that's why I kind of fell off of Call of Duty. I like the realism of
Interesting.
PUBG.
Wow.
And there's another, and this is a little bit off topic. There's another game I'm currently playing. I don't know if you've heard of it. Uh, it's called
Tarkov.
no, not Well, not Tarkov. It's similar to Tarkov, but Hunt Showdown.
Yes, yes, I've heard of it. Yeah,
Dude, have you seen the concept and all that? Like it's
yeah,
horror, and it's like kind of like PUBG where it's like a battle royale style. It's
yeah. I haven't seen much of it. I have heard of it, and in that vein, but yes, yeah.
it's good, man. It's good.
Really? Okay, all
I
right.
suggest you kind of look into that. It's really cool, really awesome creature designs. And
Someone was telling me that the other day. Yeah.
dude, it's so awesome. It's crazy. I'm not gonna say much more. I'll
No,
let
no,
you
no.
look into it.
I'll leave it. Yeah.
And then okay, so Callisto, Striking Distance Studios, and then I'm sorry, let's progress. We talked about how was Callisto supposed to be attached to PUBG?
Yeah. Well, it was. There was a time when they're writing this big, timeline for PUBG, and they had this big grand Marvel type plan. We're gonna have this game, and they're all gonna fit into this timeline.
Right.
And so they said, "Do you fit into the timeline?" I'm like, "Well, I'm about 230 years out, and I got monsters. I don't know." And
Hmm.
so at the time, I said, and we haven't finished the story and all that. We'll talk about it. And so at the time, kind of said, yeah, we'll see what we can do. But to be honest with you, we just kept writing our story and making our game. And at some point, I realized we're nowhere near the PUBG universe. So I call up CH, one day and then asked him. He said, I told him we're not in this universe. He said,
We're
okay.
gonna we're gonna
Yeah,
do our own.
then I forgot to tell the press, so it took me a while to. So I'm like,
Right.
oh shoot, I better tell because I keep getting asked the question.
Dude,
How are
everybody
you?
was trying to decipher like how in the hell is
Yeah,
this
yeah,
gonna
I think
tie
what's
into
confusing,
yeah.
how you make a sci-fi horror game within this universe, or we'll see.
Right. And I know we're closing off. I'm sure you're running on time here. Uh, and the importance of atmosphere and immersion in a video game, right? What can you speak to the importance of the atmosphere and the immersion in a video game or a movie? For example, I like to play horror games, turn off all the lights, put on my headphones, and
Yeah.
nobody come talk to me because it's gonna scare the shit out of me if I'm playing this survival horror
Yeah, yeah.
game.
Whether it's a sci-fi horror or a Star Wars game or whatever, I want to feel like I'm there when I'm playing it. And so it's really important to me. I've talked a lot about audio and how much time I'll spend in the audio booths with some of my games. But no, I firmly believe in just putting the player in that. That's what it's about. For those
Right.
hours, those people are the fans are taken away from their reality and brought into a different place. And I have to say that I've gotten more comments on this game than others. About, hey, thank you. My home life isn't great,
Right.
and your game took me away from
Escapism.
escape from this issue. And I've heard it from, different types of people, different walks of life, all kinds of things where they just thank me for
Right.
that, right? And
That's crazy.
yeah, and that's why, in making the switch, years ago you made a game and you were like doing it for your company and doing all that. And look, you still are, but these days it's about the fans, right?
Right.
And it's no BS or anything, because if I make something for the fans, something that the fans like, everything else follows.
Yeah.
So that's what I try and do. Is like my job is to make entertainment, and not everybody's going to like it, but if a few million people do, then I've done my job, and that's really what I want to do, and that's what I think of when I make my games.
Right. Well, I think that's a positive and good note to end our conversation, man. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
atmosphere, and immersion and escapism. It provides escapism for some people. Video games are such an awesome medium because a movie, you're just watching it, but a video game, it might
you're here.
have, yeah,
Yeah,
you're in it. You're in it.
you're
You're that character for a few hours or however long it takes you. So, uh, Glenn, I couldn't thank you enough for doing this interview with me. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. I'm sure you guys are working on something else, and I hope I can see more of your ideas in the future.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you for your first one, and talking to me about it. I thought that you had some great questions there and very insightful, and I appreciate that. The time went really quick, so
Yeah, and it's an hour and a half. That's crazy. But
yeah,
well, thank you, Glenn, so much.
thank you.
And enjoy the rest of your week or have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too, man. I'll see you, dude.
Awesome.
Okay.
Awesome. So
Bye.
I'm gonna end recording right now.